Outside the court. Nalini, I need a quick update, please, from you on what is being said in court. As of now, Kapil Sibal has started the arguments.
Yes, Neha, Kapil Sibal is appearing for the petitioners in the case before the three-judge bench, and he's begun his arguments. The CJI specifically asked him to keep it very short, keep it point-wise due to paucity of time. So I'll give you the bullet points on the basis of which Kapil Sibal is making his arguments. Number one, he says that the law requires that any person who wants to give his property to Waqf or turn his property into Waqf needs to prove that he is Muslim for at least 5 years before he does that. Kapil Sibal raised an objection to that, saying, who is the state to ask me to prove my Muslim identity, and how can I prove that I've been a Muslim for 5 years? In case I've been born Muslim, I should be allowed to create any property into Waqf. That is my property. That's number one that he said. Number two that he said is that in this law, through this law rather, they have also deleted the concept of Waqf by user, which means that any property that is being used for the purposes of the Waqf for a long period of time, even though there are not proper documents with regard to that, it should still be allowed to be used as a Waqf property. So he's saying that through this law, this has been removed for the future purposes, which is a huge question mark that's being raised on the law. In fact, what Kapil Sibal goes on to say is that this Waqf by user, who is the state to say that a property can or cannot be considered to be a Waqf, is a question that Kapil Sibal has asked. They've also gone ahead to say that all of these regulations are being put only on the Muslim community by the center, and that this is discriminatory under the Constitution. In fact, Kapil Sibal referred to Article 26 of the Constitution, which specifically speaks about the freedom that religious minorities have to handle their affairs, including establishing and maintaining institutions and owning property, subject to only three things, that is public order, health and morality. So on any of these three aspects, whether public order, health or morality, there is no objection that can be raised by the center regarding the Waqf properties, and that is essentially why all these petitioners have challenged this before the Supreme Court, saying that this is unnecessary regulation and this should not be allowed to be done because it's discriminatory under the constitutional scheme of India. Kapil Sibal also goes on to say that the Muslims, to demonstrate that they've been Muslims for 5 years, to create Waqf property is something that is arbitrary and it cannot officially be implemented by the government in this case, because it's very difficult to prove something as arbitrary as whether or not how long you've been Muslim for. So these are the arguments that are being placed right now before the Supreme Court. The bench is hearing all of these aspects. After Kapil Sibal, we can expect other petitioners, lawyers, including Abhishek Manu Singhi, Rajiv Dhawan and the likes, to continue the arguments, and today we are going to understand a basic gist of the case that is being put forward by the petitioners. It remains to be seen what the Supreme Court does at the end of the hearing, but right now, Senior Advocate Kapil Sibal is the first one to lead the arguments on behalf of the petitioners before the Supreme Court of India.
All right, these are details that are in fact trickling in at this point in time from the Supreme Court. Nalini telling us about the arguments that Sibal has been making. In fact, the important point that you made, and this is that this is through the advocate, senior advocate in question here, Kapil Sibal, is that it's going to be difficult at the end of the day to prove how I've been a Muslim and how I've been a practicing Muslim for 5 years. This is a significant point that he's made, Nalini, that stands out.
Yes, in fact, a very important observation even coming from the Chief Justice of India, Sneha, where Kapil Sibal has asked the question, who is the state to say that they will decide what happens regarding the inheritance. The Chief Justice of India, Justice Sanjeev Khanna, has responded that even for Hindus, the state has enacted a law and Parliament has enacted laws for Muslims also. So what the Chief Justice of India is essentially saying is that the Parliament has the powers to enact these laws. So on what basis really are the petitioners challenging it? Because it's not like only for Muslims laws have been enacted. The Parliament and the state and the center have also enacted laws for Hindus as well, regarding, of course, different aspects of their lives. It's not directly to do with property, but there are several laws that have been enacted keeping in mind the necessities of that particular community, is how the center decides as to whether or not any law, the Parliament rather decides as to whether or not any law needs to be brought into force. So that's what the Chief Justice of India said. He's also gone on to say that Article 26 does not bar the Parliament from enacting laws. Remember, it was Kapil Sibal that was stating that Article 26 allows for the religious minorities to conduct their affairs and the freedom to conduct their affairs, including managing their institutions and their properties as per their wishes. But what the Chief Justice of India said is that through this Article 26, there is no bar on the Parliament from actually enacting a law to regulate these mechanisms. He's also gone on to say that it has never been prevented. Article 26 is secular in the sense that it applies to all communities, which means that this is not only a case of a Muslim community. If a law has been enacted, there are several other laws that have also been enacted for other communities, and there is no restriction on the Parliament stating that they cannot enact a particular law to regulate the affairs of a particular community in India. So keeping that in mind, the Chief Justice of India has also Kapil Sibal has also gone on to say that what's the process where the government officer will decide between a government and a Waqf property, that this is the government property. So what Kapil Sibal is stating is that it is unfair that it is the government that's going to decide whether or not the property belongs to the Waqf or belongs to the government itself, because the essential idea of the principles of natural justice is that nobody can be a judge in their own cause. He also goes on to say that the officer, in this case a government officer, will be a judge in his own cause. It is per se unconstitutional because the government, which is an interested party in that property, will only decide what needs to be done with that property. He also says that it is such a property will be deemed not to be Waqf until it is decided so by the designated officer. So there are unfettered powers that are being given to the government and the government officers through this amendment that has been brought in by 2025, is what Kapil Sibal told the Supreme Court. As to whether or not the Supreme Court agrees to this is something we have to see. Kapil Sibal is also stating that the declaration of the protected monument as a Waqf will also be void. But to that, the Chief Justice of India has responded that the last part says that the time of declaration as a Waqf, that declaration will be void if at that time it was protected. How many of such cases are there really? And he's gone on to say that he's only asking a question, but how many of such properties actually exist to which this will apply? To which Kapil Sibal's replied that Jama Masjid is such a property, that is a protected monument, which is also a Waqf property. So whether or not it's going to apply to such properties is a big question that the Supreme Court will answer. The arguments, like we're telling you, is underway before the Supreme Court 3-judge bench. Our colleague Shrishti Ojha from Inside is getting us these live updates of what's happening in the Supreme Court. It's only the beginning of the arguments, so there are a lot more developments expected in the coming few moments, Sneha.
That's right. Back and forth with the CGI and Kapil Sibal in court. Nalini is taking us to these developments on what is being said in court. Nalini, a quick reflection of this as well, the manner in which there have been several political parties that have challenged this law in court. There have been others, and this includes BJP-ruled states that have filed counter petitions in court, saying that if at all this law was to be struck down, then there will be huge problems that will be created, isn't it?
Correct, Sneha. In fact, there are several state governments that have filed intervention applications in support of this law. Similar things, Sneha, if you remember, we'd seen before the Supreme Court during the CAA matters that had come up. There were several petitions that were filed challenging the Citizenship Amendment Act. At the same time, there were several petitions that were filed in favor of the CAA as well. So similar thing that we're seeing even in the case of the Waqf property, where it's not just individuals who've challenged the law, but there are also Muslim bodies, there are several opposition leaders, politicians who've challenged the law. And at the same time, we've also seen a slew of petitions in favor of the law, where the Supreme Court will now get the opportunity to hear both sides of the argument. Why the law is considered or deemed to be bad versus why the law is actually good and the kind of positive things that will come out of this law. So only after hearing both sides in detail is when the Supreme Court is going to come up with its decision. But in the interim, like I told you earlier, Sneha, what we need to watch out for is whether or not the Supreme Court will agree to stay this law, because that is essentially where a case can be won or lost in the interim. So the petitioners no doubt will be pushing for a stay, because the law has officially been notified, which means that it is in force across India. So which is why it's going to be pertinent for them to try and push for a stay and to try and obtain a stay from the Supreme Court of India, because that will give them a lot more room to actually come up with a strategy to challenge this law if it's not being enforced. But on the other hand, if the Supreme Court actually refuses to stay the law in the interim, which means that the law will be allowed to be enforced during the entire time that the matter is pending before the Supreme Court, so then how feasible it is to turn back time once the judgment is pronounced and go back and change all the changes that have taken place on the ground is something that raises a huge question mark. So we're not sure about that, but we'll have to wait and see what kind of a reasoning and logic is
Meanwhile,
followed
an
by the
important
Supreme Court in this.
development.